Welcome to Career Moving Opportunities for College Students, where the journey from campus to career begins. Hosted by Donnie Glover of Be More News, each episode explores how you can develop essential skills in creativity, leadership, critical thinking, and a growth mindset, all designed to enhance your college experience and prepare you for success in the workforce. Get ready to grow, lead, and create your future.
We'd like to welcome Tasemere Gathers. Tasemere, what's your title? What's your education?
I am the founder of the DM firm. I have a bachelor's in history and a master's in urban studies.
And who is your sidekick there?
You probably are going to see either one of my sidekicks, either Elijah or Zoe.
Okay, good deal. Well, hello, Elijah and Zoe. Today we're talking about growth mindset. And I'd love to hear, particularly from a mom's perspective. This video is for professionals, aspiring professionals, and aspiring entrepreneurs. What are your thoughts on growth mindset?
Your growth mindset really helps to dictate how you are going to go about saying yes or no or not right now to certain opportunities that you might be presented with. And so you want to make sure that you're thinking big about what you want to do, so that way you don't shrink yourself to fit into certain spaces. And so your growth mindset is really, really important, because if you don't have a growth mindset, you can stay stagnant.
Have you ever been stagnated?
Of course, you can get stuck into loops of you don't necessarily want to push yourself to do more because you're a little bit comfortable where you are. And so getting comfortable makes you get complacent. And so you don't really think about how you can be growing, how you can be stretching. And so that can definitely hinder you. And whether you want to be an entrepreneur, whether you're trying to get a new position at your job, whether you're looking for a new job, all those things matter.
Does your circle matter?
Of course, your circle matters, because your circle is who you go to bounce ideas off of when you're having different challenges. They give you advice. Sometimes you listen, sometimes you don't. But if you don't have a network of people that's pushing you and challenging you on how you're thinking about different things, again, you can get stuck in a vacuum of only hearing the same opinions.
And so it's important to get fresh ideas from your circle.
Yes. And they help keep you honest, hopefully.
What do you mean?
Because your circle, you would say, are people that you trust, people that know you. And so when you're trying to do something that might not sit with who they know you to be, what your character is, and what where you stand and where your lines are, hopefully your circle will keep you honest and keep you grounded while you're making these decisions.
What's an example of not being grounded?
Not being grounded is basically, I would say, lack of boundaries. So we can go with that as an example. If you are talking to someone that really knows you and they know what your boundaries are, and you're about to step outside of what they know you to be and what they know you can handle and who you are and what makes you you, for an opportunity or just to try something new, you would hope that they would pull you to the side and say, like, hey, no, you know that you can do better. You know that you could be better, and remind you of times where you were, or remind you that, like, I don't really think you want to go down this path because I don't know that to be you. So sometimes they can help keep you grounded in a way that you can lose sight of yourself.
Is it important to keep visionaries around you? And I know this is kind of restating the same question, but what kind of people do you want in your circle? How about that?
So I'll give you an idea of who my circle is. My circle is mixed up of people that I grew up with, that know me and they know me at the core and have seen how I have handled certain things, mixed in with people that have grown to know me and people that I aspire to be like. There's something about them that I'm like, hey, I aspire to have this quality. I aspire to do this thing, because I feel like you always want, in that you always want to have people that you're helping. So you want to be helped and you want to be nurtured. You also want to make sure that you're continuing to help and nurture other folks. So when you can, how do you give back? And what does give back look like for you? So that way you're growing and you're also teaching.
So reciprocal relationships.
Yes.
Tell me more about a growth mindset. You're from New York City. You're now in Maryland, in DC. Um, can you say that coming from New York City gives you more vision, helps you to understand the world differently than someone from a smaller city?
I would say so, but there's also sensibilities that you have to account for. I would say in New York City, you're used to everything being super fast, people being able to make really quick decisions and move on things faster. I find that in other cities, people kind of take their time. I also find that in Maryland, there is a sense of community that's not necessarily there in New York City. So New York City, you find or you make your community. Maryland, you step into a community, right? And so now it's not about me bringing what I think how something works from New York. Is about me seeing how those best practices can be implemented in the fabric and the culture that already exists. I find that people in Maryland are a lot friendlier. And a lot, they share resources a lot easier and it's not as transactional. And New York City, things can become very transactional. I do this for you, so you do this for me. And that can also have you question how genuine a relationship is. Sometimes you can misread that relationship when it's so transactional, and you start to find that while you know people, you know more transactional people than you know people that really genuinely care and have your back, that if you were having a bad day they would want to try to help you. In Maryland, I find that people really want to get to know who you are, and they're really invested in those kind of, yeah, I'm trying to get out, Zoe. I'm trying to, I find that they really care about who you are and want to get to know you, and not from a way of necessarily using that information against you, but in a way to really try to say, I want to know who I'm talking to, because I want to know how deep in this relationship we can go. Not, I want to know who I'm talking to so I can bring something up later on.
Trust. I'm hearing trust at the core of that. Being mindful of who we bring in that we can trust and who we need to leave on the front porch.
Yes.
Mhm. What else? I'm also hearing adaptability, being able to adapt to one's environment. So if you're talking about a career or if you're talking about growing a business, we have to be able to adapt to whatever that culture is. If you're in Alaska versus DC or in California, just understanding where one is.
Mm-hmm.
Europe,
Mm-hmm.
Puerto Rico, Africa.
Yep.
Understanding the
Yep.
landscape, that's important to one's growth potential.
Yes, I agree with that.
What else can you share with us about a growth mindset for that you would share with young entrepreneurs, young business professionals?
Taking risk and reason. I think that when you take risk and reason, you really learn how to stretch and grow. And I think sometimes you can be a little scared of taking a risk, and that's good. That means that you're still alive and you should probably consider that risk. Um, I think that when you take risk and you see the impact, whether it came out the way you wanted it to or not, you learn something from it, but it also builds this muscle that you can take greater risk. So if you want to do whatever that big thing is, if you aren't taking small risk along the way, how do you ever get to the big elephant that you're trying to say that will be your win? Because you haven't practiced that yet. So you have to like practice this growth mindset, and before you know it, you'll start doing things that you will look back a year or 2 years from now and say, I didn't think I could, but I remember that I did, and I remember what happened. And those things help you to take greater risk and help you to grow in other ways.
So moving beyond our comfort zone.
Yes.
Is it easy to stay stuck in one's comfort zone?
Yeah, because it's familiar. And you already know where all the landmines are. You know this place, you know how to navigate, you know what to expect. It's comfortable. You might even be secure there. But in order to get to greater heights, whatever those greater heights are, you have to be uncomfortable and still do it. I'm not going to say get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because then maybe whatever you're uncomfortable about isn't uncomfortable enough, but you have to get to understanding, yes, this makes me uncomfortable, yes, I'm not quite sure how, why I'm going to do something, how that's going to happen, but I'm still going to try. And there's so much growth that comes with being curious and trying.
What do you mean?
Because when you're curious about something and you try it, you're not necessarily have an expectation that it's going to be right. You're curious. Your curiosity is like, I wonder what this thing is. I wonder how this is going to work. And you learn from those, and you take those learnings into the next thing. Or it makes for great conversation later on, because sometimes what you're going through in your growth phase isn't always for you. It's preparing you for a conversation that you don't even know you're going to have later on. And so I think those things are important.
In terms of a growth mindset, what about our significant other?
Mm-hmm.
If I have a growth mindset, does my significant other have to have a growth mindset too?
I want to say yes, but it also has to be empathetic. So if your significant other doesn't necessarily have the same kind of growth mindsets that you have, but they are supportive, that can work. I think that when you're growing in one direction and you're willing to take risk, and your significant other isn't willing to take risks, that can happen. It has to be some empathy around what you're doing and why you're doing it. And as long as they aren't getting in the way of you trying to grow, that's what matters. You really want to have somebody that's a partner and somebody that's supportive. If you can have somebody that challenges you and you challenge them, you guys grow in different ways and you guys experience different things. But at the very minimum, I think having the support there is what is probably equally as important as your significant other having a growth mindset. Because sometimes somebody has to negotiate, right? If I'm trying to travel around the country and you're also trying to travel around the country and we're trying to do this around the same time, can we both do it? Does one person have to take a step back and be supportive, even though they might have a growth mindset, in order for the other person to get the opportunity first? right? So it's some sort of like negotiation of how we're going to support each other, even if we're both driven. What does that look like in that space for us as a couple or as a partnership? I think is a healthier conversation than who is more ambitious, who's trying to grow, what direction they're trying to grow at, because you guys have to make sacrifices. And sometimes that sacrifice might look like you guys aren't spending as much time as you did before because somebody is working on a really important project. And this project is going to be for 6 months. And so now you have to be supportive in that, right? And what does support look like for your partner? How do they need to be supported? Do they need you to go to a convention with them? Do they need you to write up something for them? Do they need you to be a sounding board? Or do they need you to just silently be there? I mean, support looks like different things for different people. So I think that to me, that is important when you're talking about how your significant other, what role they have in the growth mindset.
I don't know. Did I ask you your education?
Yes.
What schools?
I went to SUNY Oswego for undergrad, and I went to Long Island University for grad school.
How important is education in the formation of a growth mindset?
I think we want to talk about what kind of education, because I think that people go to college and sometimes they're really good at the institution of education, but not learning and practicing. So I have found that some of my best conversations come from people that don't have degrees. That doesn't mean that they're less intelligent or less as an intellect. They just don't have the formal degree that said that they did X amount of credits, they majored in this thing. So I think education can come from different places. Like if you read, if you think deeply about things, if you have certain conversations, your network of who you're talking to also helps, because your friends and your family, you guys are constantly learning from each other. So what are you learning from each other? What are you challenging each other on? How are you thinking about things? How are you encouraging each other? All of that to me is part of education versus the formal education of going to school and getting a certificate or a degree, because I have found some people that have degrees, even PhDs, necessarily don't know what they're talking about. They know the theory of what that thing is, but they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to pivot. They don't know how to talk to people about it. They don't know how to have vision. They too might not have a growth mindset because they might be thinking about writing about what it could be versus them practicing it in their real life. So it's a balance to me.
Does faith play a role in a growth mindset? Can you be a child of God and have a weak growth mindset? Or should one's faith actually propel one's growth mindset?
Well, I think faith is interesting because I think, again, I have had conversations with people that would say that they are more spiritual than religious. So I think when we talk about faith, we have to talk about, are you the sheep or are you somebody that inquires? Because oftentimes I find that people that subscribe to a particular religion are easily lulled to sleep. They don't ask questions. They just say, my pastor, my minister, my whoever told me I have to do this. So therefore I did it. I don't know. They just told me that I had to do it. They're not necessarily empowered to be inquisitive around why does it have to be this way. So I think that faith can play a role depending on that person's uh method and how they think, how real they are, because faith can also make you delusional that you live in a different space that's not reality sometimes, depending on who you're talking to. I think it just matters how that impacts that person.
So with a minute or so, moving from New York to Maryland, what is your growth mindset?
Oh, that was hard. I had to move and say I'm leaving my family and my friends behind. I have 2 kids. What does this look like? How is this gonna be? I have to meet new people. And you lose making friends the older you get. You're like, I don't need no new friends. And then you get to a new place and you're like, no, I probably do need friends. But now how am I gonna make friends? Like what does friendship look like? How do I balance that with me being a mom? What's my new identity? um it really has challenged me to think through, like, how do I connect with people and what can I offer, right? Like, if I want to have friends, what do I offer as a friend? If I want to collaborate or partner with someone, what do I offer them, right? How do I elevate conversation? Things like that is what I have been challenged with for like the past year.
I'm so proud of you, Tasemere, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I can't wait for what's next.
Thank you, Donnie.
I'm proud of you. Have a great one. Thank you.
You too.
Thanks for listening to Career Moving Opportunities for College Students with your host, Donnie Glover. We hope today's episode helped spark new ideas and practical strategies for building your skill set and shaping your future. Be sure to join us next time as we continue the journey from college to career, one opportunity at a time.